The cold hit Sarah Chun first. It always did when someone came out of cryosleep. Her body felt like ice, and her mind moved slowly like thick mud. She opened her eyes and saw the white ceiling of the sleep chamber. The same ceiling she had looked at for the last 50 times she had woken up. But something was different this time. The lights were brighter. The air felt thick with electricity. And there was a sound she had never heard before, a deep humming that seemed to come from the Yah. Walls themselves. Sarah sat up slowly. Her muscles ached and her head felt heavy. She was 35 years old, but she had been alive for over 3,000 years. The cryosleep had kept her body young while the ship traveled through space. She was one of the last humans alive. Ship was called the Eternal Vigil. It was huge, bigger than any city that had ever been built on Earth. But Earth was gone now. It had been destroyed 3,000 years ago. Sarah had never seen it. Neither had her parents or their parents. Only the oldest records remembered what Earth looked like. She walked to the window and looked out at the stars. They looked the same as always, cold, distant, and endless. But today felt different. Today felt like something was about to change. "Computer," she said. Her voice was rough from sleep. "Why was I woken up early?" The computer's voice filled the room. It sounded like an old man, calm and patient. "Commander Chun, we have received a message, a very old message. It has been decoded and is ready for your review." Sarah felt her heart beat faster. Messages were rare. The ship had been silent for decades. They tried to stay hidden from the rest of the galaxy, hidden from the ones who had killed their world. "Show me the message," she said. A screen appeared in the air in front of her. Words began to scroll across it. But these were not words in any language she knew. They looked old, almost like pictures. "This is the original human language from Earth," the computer said. "Before the common galactic language was forced upon your people. The message says, the time has come. The children of Earth must remember. The truth must be told." Sarah stared at the words. Her people had their own language once. Before the aliens came. Before they took everything away. "Computer, show me the full archives. Show me everything about Earth. About what really happened." "Are you certain, Commander?" "This information has been restricted for your protection. It contains disturbing content about the destruction of your homeworld." Sarah clenched her fists. "Show me everything." The room around her changed. Suddenly she was standing in a place she had never been, but somehow knew. It was Earth, the real Earth. Blue skies stretched above her. Green grass grew beneath her feet. She could smell clean air and hear birds singing. But this was just a recording, a memory saved in the ship's computers. She watched as the story began to unfold around her. 3,000 years ago, the computer's voice said, humanity lived on a world called Earth. They were young as a species. They had just learned to travel between stars. They thought they were alone in the universe. Sarah watched as humans built their first spaceships. She saw them take their first steps on other worlds. They looked so hopeful, so excited about what they might find. But they were not alone, the computer continued. The galaxy was full of life, and that life was watching them. The scene changed. Now Sarah saw aliens, 12 different species, each more strange than the last. Some looked like giant insects. Others were made of what seemed like living metal. Some had too many eyes. Others had no eyes at all. These species called themselves the Hegemony Council. They ruled the galaxy. They decided which species could leave and which species had to die. Sarah watched as the aliens met in a great hall. They spoke in languages that hurt to hear, but the computer translated their words. "The humans are dangerous," one alien said. Its voice sounded like breaking glass. They learn too quickly. They adapt too well. They will threaten our rule. Another alien, this one covered in spines, spoke next. They must be controlled, made to serve, or eliminated. But how? Asked a third. They are spread across many worlds now. They reproduce quickly. A direct attack would be costly. The first alien smiled. At least, Sarah thought it was a smile. It was hard to tell with a face like that. We do not attack them directly. We make them attack themselves. Sarah felt sick as she watched what happened next. The aliens did not send armies to human worlds. Instead, they sent agents. Spies who looked human but were not human. These agents got important jobs. They became leaders, scientists, generals. Slowly, they began to poison human society from within. They started wars between human colonies. They made humans distrust each other. They spread diseases and blamed other humans for them. They made humans fight over resources that should have been shared. This was called the plan, the computer said. The aliens would make humanity destroy itself. Then they would claim it was natural, that humans were too violent to survive. Sarah watched years pass. Decades, centuries. Human civilization began to fall apart. Wars broke out across human space. Colonies went dark. Millions died fighting each other, never knowing. They were being controlled by alien hands, but some humans began to suspect the truth. Scientists noticed strange patterns in the conflicts. Spy networks discovered evidence of alien involvement. A secret group of humans began to prepare for the worst. Your ancestors, the computer said, were part of this group. They built ships, like this one in secret. They gathered the best and brightest humans. They prepared for the day when Earth itself would be attacked. Sarah watched as the secret fleet was built. Hundreds of ships, hidden in the dark spaces between stars. Each ship carried thousands of humans in cryo-sleep. Each ship had copies of all human knowledge, all human culture, all human history. They called themselves the Preservation Fleet, the computer said. Their job was to make sure that if humanity died, it would not be forgotten. The scene changed again. Now Sarah was looking at Earth from space. It was beautiful, a blue and green jewel floating in the darkness. But something was wrong. The continents were shifting. The oceans were boiling. The final phase of the plan, the computer said. When the aliens decided that humanity was taking too long to destroy itself, they used a weapon. They made it look like a natural disaster, a shift in the planet's core, but it was not natural. Sarah watched in horror as Earth died. The planet cracked like an egg. Lava poured from massive wounds in the ground. The atmosphere burned away. Within hours, nothing was left but a dead rock floating in space. 12 billion humans died that day, the computer said quietly. The aliens told the galaxy that it was humanity's own fault, that their wars and pollution had destroyed their world. The other species believed them. The recording ended. Sarah stood alone in the empty room, tears running down her face. She had always known Earth was gone, but she had never known the truth about how it died. Her people had not destroyed themselves. They had been murdered. How many ships escaped? She asked. 47 ships made it away from Earth before the destruction. Each ship carried between 5 and 10,000 humans. You are the descendants of approximately 300,000 survivors. Sarah wiped her tears away. 300,000 out of 12 billion. But they had survived. And they had kept the truth alive. Computer, are there any other ships still out there? Unknown, Commander. This ship has been alone for over 1,000 years. But the message we received suggests that others may still exist. Sarah looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there, the aliens who had killed her world were still alive, still ruling the galaxy. still believing they had gotten away with murder. But they were wrong. Humanity was not dead. And now, 3,000 years later, it was time for them to learn that truth. "Computer," Sarah said, her voice now strong and clear, "wake up the council, all of them. It's time to plan our return to the galaxy." The humming in the walls grew louder. Throughout the ship, other humans began to wake from their long sleep. The preservation fleet had preserved more than just human life and knowledge. They had preserved human anger. And now that anger was about to be unleashed upon those who had thought they destroyed it forever. Sarah walked through the halls of the eternal vigil with purpose. The ship was coming alive around her. Lights that had been dim for decades now burned bright. Computer screens flickered to life. The air recyclers hummed with new energy. After 3,000 years of hiding, the ship was waking up. She had called the council meeting for tomorrow. But first, she needed to see something. Something that had been hidden even from her until now. The computer had mentioned restricted areas, places that only opened when certain conditions were met. Those conditions had finally been met. "Computer, where are the deep vaults?" she asked. "Level 97, Section Omega. Commander, I must warn you that the contents of those vaults are classified beyond normal security protocols. Only the ship's commanding officer during an active mission phase may access them." "And what makes this an active mission phase?" "The receipt of the awakening. Signal. The signal you received this morning has activated protocols that have been dormant for 3 millennia. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The message had not just been a call to remember. It had been a key, unlocking secrets that her own people had hidden from themselves. She took the elevator down to level 97. She had never been this deep in the ship before. The walls here looked different, older, like they had been built by different hands than the rest of the ship. The corridor was long and dark, with only small lights marking the path forward. At the end of the corridor was a door unlike any she had seen. It was not made of metal or plastic. It looked almost alive, like it was grown rather than built. Strange. Patterns moved across its surface, like living tattoos. "Place your hand on the bioscanner," the computer said. Sarah pressed her palm against the door. It felt warm, almost hot. Light ran through the patterns on the surface, reading something in her blood, her DNA, her very essence. After a moment, the door opened with a sound like a sigh. Beyond the door was a room that should not have been possible. It was vast, far larger than the ship itself. The ceiling stretched up into darkness. The walls curved away into shadows. And everywhere she looked, there were things that made her mind hurt to see. "Welcome to the archive of forbidden knowledge," the computer said. "Here lies humanity's true inheritance." Sarah walked forward slowly. The floor beneath her feet was not solid. It rippled like water with each step, but held her weight. Around her, she could see objects floating in the air. Some looked like machines, but they moved in ways that machines should not move. Others looked like books, but their pages turned themselves, and the words on them changed as she watched. "What is this place?" she whispered. During the final years before Earth's destruction, human scientists discovered that the laws of physics were not as fixed as they had believed. The aliens had kept this knowledge secret, using it to maintain their power over other species. But humans, being humans, learned to break the rules. Sarah approached one of the floating objects. It looked like a sphere made of mirror, but when she looked into it, she did not see her reflection. Instead, she saw other places, other times. She saw alien worlds burning. She saw stars being moved like pieces on a game board. She saw things that had not happened yet, but might happen soon. "Time manipulation," the computer explained. "One of the forbidden technologies. The aliens banned it because it could be used to prevent their rise to power. But human scientists perfected it in secret. How? Sarah asked, still staring into the mirror sphere. They realized that time is not a river flowing in one direction. It is more like an ocean. And if you know how to swim, you can move through. The survivors who escaped Earth, did not just flee into space. They fled into time itself, hiding in the spaces between moments. Sarah moved to another object. This one looked like a human grain floating in light. But as she watched, she realized it was not just one grain. It was thousands, maybe millions, all connected together. Consciousness transfer, the computer said. Another forbidden technology. The aliens feared it because it could make a species truly immortal. Not just long-lived, but actually immortal. Human scientists learned to move minds between bodies, between machines, between pure energy. Are these real brains? Sarah asked. They were once. Now they are something else. The greatest minds humanity ever produced, preserved forever in quantum substrate. They have been thinking, learning, and planning for 3,000 years. They are the ones who sent the awakening signal. Sarah felt her legs grow weak. She sat down on the strange floor, which somehow formed a chair beneath her. Everything she had thought she knew about her people was wrong. They were not just refugees hiding in space. They were something far more dangerous. Computer, show me more. The room around her shifted. New objects appeared from the shadows. She saw weapons that looked like toys, but felt wrong to look at. She saw engines that could move faster than light by convincing space that distance was optional. She saw seeds that could grow into entire worlds, and viruses that could rewrite the laws of reality itself. For 3,000 years, the computer sighed, humanity has been evolving, not just biologically, but technologically, mentally, spiritually. The aliens thought they were destroying a primitive species. Instead, they created their worst nightmare. Sarah stood up and walked to the center of the room. There, floating, above everything else, was a single red button. It pulsed with its own light, and looking at it made her feel things she had no words for. What does that button do? She asked, though part of her already knew she did not want to know. It activates the Genesis Protocol, the final gift of the scientists who died with Earth. Press it, and every piece of forbidden technology in this room becomes available to humanity. The time locks break. The consciousness archives open. The reality engines start. Humanity becomes what it was always meant to become. And what is that? The next step in evolution. A species that does not just live in the universe, but commands. The aliens rule through fear and force. Humans will rule through understanding and will. Where aliens see laws that cannot be broken, humans see suggestions that can be ignored. Sarah stared at the button. It would be so easy to press it, to unleash 3,000 years of human anger and ingenuity upon the galaxy that had murdered her world. But she could feel the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Once this choice was made, there would be no going back. Computer, what happened to the humans who built this place? The original scientists? They transcended physical existence. During the construction phase, their bodies died, but their minds were uploaded into the quantum archive. They exist now as pure thought, working constantly to improve the technologies you see here. They are waiting to meet you. As if summoned by the computer's words, the floating brain sphere began to glow brighter. Voices spoke from it, dozens of them at once, but somehow Sarah could understand them all. "Hello, daughter of Earth," they said. "We have been waiting for you, waiting for someone brave enough to claim our legacy." "Who are you?" Sarah asked. "We are your ancestors, the scientists who refused to let humanity die quietly. We have spent 3 millennia preparing for this moment, the moment when our children would return to take back what was stolen from them. Is it really possible? Can we defeat the hegemony?" They Voices laughed, but it was not a happy sound. Defeat them? Child, we are going to do something far worse than that. We are going to make them irrelevant. Show them that all their power was built on lies. That the universe they thought they controlled never belonged to them at all. Sarah looked around the room one more time. At the impossible technologies. At the weapons that could reshape reality. At the minds of the greatest humans who had ever lived, still thinking and planning after thousands of years. Her ancestors had not just preserved humanity. They had improved it, made it into something the galaxy had never seen before. Something that could not be stopped by conventional weapons or normal tactics. Computer, she said finally, connect me to the ship's communication array. It is time to send a message to the other survivor fleets. Tell them the sleeping giant is about to wake up. She walked back toward the red button, her decision made. The Hegemony Council had destroyed Earth thinking they were eliminating the threat. They had no idea that they had actually created one. A threat that had been growing in the dark for 3,000 years. Becoming something beyond their worst fears. Sarah reached out and pressed the button. The room exploded with light. Every object began to move. The consciousness archive opened like a flower, releasing the stored minds of humanity's greatest thinkers. Reality engines hummed to life, already beginning to rewrite the laws of physics in this small corner of space. In the depths of the quantum substrate, something that had been sleeping for 3 millennia opened its eyes and smiled. The inheritance had been claimed. Now it was time to collect the debt. The message went out into the dark spaces between stars. It was not a normal radio signal that aliens could intercept. It was something older, deeper. A call that only human minds could hear. A song that had been sleeping in human DNA for 3,000 years, waiting for the right moment to wake up. Sarah stood on the command bridge of the Eternal Vigil, watching the stars through the massive viewing window. The ship had changed since she pressed the red button. The walls hummed with new energy. Lights that had never existed before now pulsed through the corridors. And the ship itself felt different, like it was more alive than before. First response. Coming in, the computer announced. Ship designation, Iron Dream. Captain Marcus Webb commanding. A hologram appeared in front of Sarah. It showed a man who looked to be in his 40s, but his eyes were much older. He wore a uniform she had never seen before, black with silver lines that seemed to move on their own. Commander Chan, he said, and his voice carried an accent from old Earth that had been lost for centuries. We received your wake-up call. About bloody time, I'd say. We've been ready for this for 800 years. Captain Webb, Sarah replied. Where is your ship located? Webb smiled, and there was something dangerous in that smile. We're everywhere and nowhere, Commander. We learned to slip between the cracks of space itself. But if you want coordinates, we're currently inside the Vega system. The aliens think it's empty. They have no idea we turned the entire asteroid belt into a weapons platform. Before Sarah could respond, another hologram appeared. This one showed a woman with dark skin and silver hair. Her eyes glowed with a soft blue light that was definitely not natural. Commander Chan, the woman said, I am Admiral Yuki Tanaka of the fleet ship Prometheus Rising. We have been hiding in the Centauri Nebula for the past 1,000 years. The aliens think it's just a cloud of gas. They don't know we've been using it as a construction yard. What have you been building? Sarah asked. Admiral Tanaka's glowing eyes brightened. Ships that don't follow normal physics. Weapons that can reach across dimensions. And soldiers who are more than human, but still human at heart. We took the technologies from your archives and improved them, made them better. More holograms appeared. Captain after captain, admiral after admiral, each one commanding a fleet that had found its own way to survive and grow in the dark. Sarah realized that humanity had not just hidden from the aliens. They had been preparing. "How many ships do we have in total?" Sarah asked. "That's a good question," said a new voice. The hologram showed a young man who looked barely 20, but when he spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. "I'm Admiral Chin Lee of the Ghost Fleet. We've been living between dimensions for 2,000 years. We have about 300 ships, but they exist in 17 different realities at the same time." Another voice joined in. "Admiral Sarah Johnson here, commanding the Darwin Fleet. We've been traveling the galaxy disguised as alien traders for 1,500 years. We have agents on every major alien world. Some of them have been in deep cover for so long, they've had children and grandchildren who don't even know they're human." Sarah felt overwhelmed. She had expected to find a few scattered ships full of desperate refugees. Instead, she was looking at the commanders of entire fleets, each one specialized for a different kind of warfare. "Admiral Rebecca Torres, Saul's Revenge Fleet," another woman announced. Her uniform was covered in scars, and half of her face was metal. "We've been hunting alien war criminals for 1,000 years. We know where every member of the original Hegemony Council lives. Some of them are already dead, but they don't know it yet." "What do you mean they don't know it yet?" Sarah asked. Torres smiled grimly. "Time warfare, Commander. We killed them in the future and sent the effect backwards. They'll die exactly when we need them to die, not a moment before." The holograms kept appearing, admiral after admiral, each one reporting fleets that had survived in different ways. Some had hidden in black holes, using the time dilation to think faster than the rest of the universe. Others had merged with machines, becoming something that was still human, but could interface directly with technology. Still others had learned to exist as pure energy, taking physical form only when they needed to. "Computer," Sarah said quietly, "how many humans are there now?" "Approximately 50 million, Commander, spread across 237 fleets. Each fleet has developed different specializations based on their hiding place and survival strategy." Sarah's mind reeled. When Earth died, only 300,000 humans had escaped. Now there were 50 million. They had not just survived, they had grown. "How is that possible?" she asked. Admiral Tanaka answered. "Life extension technology, Commander. Some of us learned to live for thousands of years. Others discovered how to copy consciousness into new bodies. And a few fleets developed accelerated breeding programs in pocket dimensions where time moves faster. We didn't just preserve humanity," Admiral Webb added. "We evolved it, made it better, stronger, smarter. The aliens think they destroyed a primitive species. They have no idea what we've become." The gathering of holograms continued for hours. Sarah met admirals who commanded fleets of living ships that could think for themselves. She spoke with captains who had turned entire moons into weapons. She learned about human colonies that existed inside stars, using the nuclear fire as both power source and camouflage. But the most shocking revelation came from Admiral David Kim of the Infiltrator Fleet. "Commander Chun," he said, "we need to tell you something about the current state of alien civilization. It's not what you think." "What do you mean?" "The Hegemony Council is falling apart. Has been for the last 500 years. The 12 species that destroyed Earth are now at war with each other. They're fighting over territory, resources, trade routes. Their unity died with their common enemy." Admiral Torres nodded. "That's right. We've been encouraging their conflicts for centuries. A sabotaged treaty here, a mysterious attack there. We made them suspicious of each other. Now they spend more time fighting each other than ruling the galaxy." "But that's not the best part," Admiral Kim continued. "Some of the younger alien species, the ones who weren't part of the original council, have figured out that the hegemony lied about humanity. They know Earth wasn't destroyed by human wars. They know it was murder. Sarah felt a surge of hope. Are they willing to ally with us? Some of them, yes. The Zephyrians lost their homeworld to a hegemony intervention 200 years ago. The Christic Empire has been fighting hegemony expansion for decades. The soft ones have been secretly helping human refugees for generations. Admiral Johnson leaned forward in her hologram. Commander, we're not just looking at a war of revenge anymore. We're looking at a galactic revolution. Half the galaxy wants the hegemony gone. They're just waiting for someone strong enough to lead the fight. Sarah looked around at the dozens of holograms surrounding her. Each one represented thousands of ships, millions of humans, and technologies that could reshape reality itself. The ragged refugees who had fled Earth's destruction had become something the galaxy had never seen before. Admirals, she said, her voice carrying new authority, it's time to come home. Set course for the Sol system. It's time to reclaim our birthplace. Commander, Admiral Webb said carefully, Sol is heavily guarded. The aliens turned it into a fortress system after Earth's destruction. They have battle stations around every planet, sensor networks that can detect a fly in the outer system. Sarah smiled, and for the first time in her life, she felt truly dangerous. Captain Webb, do you remember what we found in the archives? The reality engines? The consciousness weapons? The time manipulation devices? Yes, ma'am. Then you know that their sensors can't detect what doesn't exist in their reality. Their weapons can't hit what isn't there. Their fortresses can't defend against enemies who attack from outside time itself. The admirals began to smile, one by one. They had spent 3,000 years preparing for this moment, learning, growing, becoming something their enemies could not imagine. All fleets, Sarah commanded, begin convergence on Sol. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity has become. It's time to go home. Across the galaxy, in hidden dimensions and pocket realities, in the hearts of stars and the depths of black holes, humanity began to move. For the first time in 3,000 years, they were no longer hiding. They were hunting. The attack began with silence. Across the galaxy, alien communication networks simply stopped working. Not destroyed, not damaged, just stopped. Hegemony admirals tried to contact their fleets and heard nothing. Trade coordinators found their shipping schedules erased. Government officials discovered their secure channels had never existed. On the capital world of the hegemony, Supreme Chancellor Vextar sat in his crystalline throne room, his 6 eyes focused on reports that made no sense. The Zephyrian trade dispute had somehow escalated into full war overnight. The Christic Empire had declared independence and was somehow winning against superior forces. 3 hegemony battle fleets had simply vanished near the Orion sector. Chancellor, his aide whispered, its voice shaking with fear, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Something is happening. Something impossible. Explain, Vextar commanded, his translator converting his words into the common galactic language. The humans, sir. They're back. Vextar's eyes narrowed. Impossible. We destroyed their world 3,000 years ago. We verified their extinction. Sir, you need to see this. The aide activated the holographic display in the center of the throne room. Images appeared from across hegemony space. Battle stations that had been operating for centuries suddenly turned their weapons on their own fleets. Automated defense systems identified hegemony ships as enemy targets. Entire star systems reported that their computer networks were rebelling, but the most shocking image came from the Sol system itself, where Earth had once been, where only dead rock had floated for 3 millennia. Something new had appeared. It looked like Earth, but wrong. The continents were the same, but they glowed with strange light. The oceans were blue, but they moved in patterns that hurt to watch. And around this impossible world, ships unlike anything in the galaxy hung, in perfect formation. How? Vextar whispered. His question was answered by a voice that came from everywhere at once, from the walls, from the air, from inside his own mind. "Hello, Chancellor," the voice said in perfect ancient hegemony dialect. "My name is Sarah. Chun. I represent the human species. We need to talk." Vextar's guards raised their weapons, but there was nothing to shoot at. The voice had no source. "You remember us, don't you?" Sarah's voice continued. "The primitive species you murdered 3,000 years ago? We've been thinking about you, all of us, for a very long time." On the holographic display, new images appeared. Hyman ships materializing out of empty space throughout hegemony territory. Not attacking, just appearing, watching, waiting. "This is impossible," Vextar said. "Our sensors show nothing. Our weapons detect no targets." "Your sensors are looking in the wrong reality," Sarah replied. "Your weapons are aiming at the wrong dimension. We've learned a lot since you killed our world, Chancellor. We've learned that physics is just a suggestion, that time is just a direction, that death is just a temporary inconvenience." The images on the display changed again. Now they showed hegemony worlds, but something was wrong with them. On Korath Prime, the industrial capital, all the factories had stopped working. Not broken, just stopped. The machines stood still, as if they had forgotten what they were supposed to do. On Nesser, the military headquarters world, soldiers found their weapons had turned into flowers. Not damaged weapons, actual flowers that had never been weapons at all, despite everyone's memories to the contrary. On Mindel, the information center of the galaxy, every computer displayed the same message. Remember Earth. Remember the truth. Remember what you did. "You see," Sarah's voice explained, "we didn't come back for war. War is what you do. We came back to show you what you really are." Vextar stood from his throne, his 6 eyes burning with rage. "What are you doing to us?" "We're telling the truth. For 3,000 years, you've ruled through lies. You told the galaxy that humans destroyed themselves. You made other species believe that questioning your rule would lead to chaos. You convinced everyone that your way was the only way." New images appeared. Historical records that had been hidden for millennia. Documents showing the hegemony's lies about dozens of species they had eliminated. Evidence of manipulated wars, false flag operations, genocides disguised as natural disasters. "But the truth has a way of coming out," Sarah continued, "especially when it's delivered by people who've learned to edit reality itself. Across the galaxy, every screen, every communication device, every information system began showing the Yosowing. Same thing, the true history of the hegemony, the species they had murdered, the civilizations they had destroyed, the lies they had told, and at the center of it all, the truth about Earth." Vextar watched in horror as his empire began to crumble in real time. Not from human attacks, but from the collapse of the lies that held it together. Species that had served the hegemony for centuries suddenly remembered their true histories. Worlds that had been loyal for millennia discovered what had really happened to their ancestors. "Stop this," Vextar commanded. "What do you want? Resources? Territory?" "We can negotiate." Sarah's laughter filled the air, but it was not a happy sound. "You still don't understand, do you? You think this is about conquest, about revenge, about taking your place as rulers." The image on the display changed one final time. It showed Earth as it had been before its destruction. Green, blue, alive. Then it showed Earth as it was now. Still green and blue, but different, better, more real than reality itself. "We don't want your empire, Chancellor. We want to undo it, completely. We want to make it so that it never existed in the first place. That's impossible, Vextar whispered. Is it? We've spent 3,000 years learning to break the rules you live by. We've mastered technologies you banned because you are afraid of them. We've become something you never imagined possible. Around the throne room, Vextar's guards began to change. Not attacked, not harmed, just changed. Their weapons became flowers. Their armor became civilian clothes. Their memories began to shift, showing them lives where they had never been soldiers at all. You see, Sarah explained, the thing about time manipulation is that it doesn't just let you change the future. It lets you change the past. And we've decided that the past where the hegemony existed was a mistake. Vextar felt his own memories beginning to shift. Images of his rise to power, of the great conquests, of the glory of hegemony rule, all beginning to fade like dreams upon waking. No, he said, fighting against the changes in his mind. We are the rightful rulers of this galaxy. We brought order to chaos. We prevented wars. You created wars, Sarah corrected. You manufactured chaos so you could profit from order. But that's okay, Chancellor. Soon, none of it will matter. Because soon, none of it will have ever happened. The reality around Vextar began to shift. The walls of his throne room became transparent. Through them, he could see the truth. The galaxy, as it really was, without hegemony influence. Species living in peace. Worlds sharing resources freely. Civilizations growing and learning together instead of fighting over scraps. This is what the galaxy looks like without you, Sarah said. This is what it was always meant to become. Vextar felt himself beginning to fade. Not dying, just becoming. Less real. Around him, the entire hegemony capital was dissolving like mist in sunlight. Wait, he called out desperately. If you erase us, millions will die. Billions. The galaxy needs rulers. Without us, there will be chaos. No, Sarah replied, and her voice was now gentle, almost sad. Without you, there will be freedom. The chaos was your creation, Chancellor. You made species fight each other, so they would need you to maintain peace, but they don't need rulers. They never did. The last thing Vextar saw before he faded from existence was Earth. Not the dead world his people had created, but the living world humanity had restored. Green and blue and beautiful, surrounded by ships that moved like living things through space that bent itself to welcome them. The human species has returned to the galaxy, Sarah's voice announced to every world, every ship, every mind that could hear it. We have come not as conquerors, but as gardeners. The weeds have been removed. Now the real growth can begin. Across the galaxy, the hegemony simply stopped existing. Not destroyed, not defeated, just edited out of reality itself. In its place, the galaxy remembered a different history. A history where species had learned to cooperate instead of conquer. Where differences were celebrated instead of eliminated. Where the strong protected the weak instead of exploiting them. And in the Sol system, around a world that had died and been reborn, humanity stood guard over the new reality they had created. The plan had been completed. Not the hegemony's plan for human extinction, but humanity's plan for universal liberation. The reckoning was over. The real work was about to begin. 1 year after the hegemony ceased to exist, Sarah Chun stood on the surface of New Earth, watching the sunrise over oceans that sparkled with colors that had no names. The planet beneath her feet was real, but it was also more than real. It existed in 17 different dimensions at once, each one showing a different possibility of what Earth could become. The air was clean, cleaner than any world in the galaxy. The grass beneath her feet grew in mathematical patterns that somehow felt perfectly natural. In the distance, she could see the spires of New Geneva, where representatives from across the galaxy were gathering for the first galactic assembly. "Commander," a voice said behind her. Sarah turned to see Admiral Tanaka approaching, but she looked different now. Her eyes no longer glowed with artificial light. Her skin had a healthy color that came from breathing real air under a real sun. Around them both, the reality engines hummed quietly, maintaining the complex physics that allowed New Earth to exist. "How are the integration procedures going?" Sarah asked. "Better than expected," Tanaka replied. "Most species are adapting well to the new reality. The Zephyrians are especially grateful. Their homeworld has been restored to its state before hegemony intervention. The Christic Empire is helping us establish trade networks based on mutual benefit rather than exploitation." Sarah nodded. Restoring what the hegemony had destroyed had been the easy part. Creating something better was proving more challenging. "What about the former hegemony species?" she asked. "That's more complicated," Tanaka admitted. "Most of them don't remember being part of the hegemony at all. The reality revision worked perfectly. In their memories, they've always been independent species trying to build peaceful civilizations, but some are struggling with the transition." Sarah had expected this. Erasing the hegemony from history had been necessary, but it left gaps. Species that had built their entire identity around ruling others suddenly found themselves with no purpose. Worlds that had been administrative centers for galactic oppression now had to figure out how to function as normal planets. "The Korathi are having the most trouble," Tanaka continued. "They were the hegemony's military specialists. Now they remember being a warrior culture, but they have no memory of what they were fighting for. They're requesting guidance on how to redirect their society." "What did we tell them?" Admiral Torres suggested they become galaxy's protectors. Use their military skills to defend smaller species from natural disasters and external threats. "They seem to like that idea," Sarah smiled. "Trust Rebecca Torres to find a way to turn former enemies into allies." The Admiral had spent 1,000 years hunting hegemony war criminals. Now she was helping their descendants find new purposes. Chimes sounded in the air around them, musical notes that conveyed information directly to their minds. It was one of humanity's newer innovations, borrowed from the soft ones and improved with human technology. "The assembly is ready to begin," the chime announced. Sarah and Tanaka walked toward New Geneva. The city was unlike anything that had ever existed before. Buildings grew from the ground like living things, but they were clearly artificial. Streets flowed like rivers, but remained solid underfoot. And everywhere, representatives from hundreds of species moved in harmony. Assembly Hall stood at the center of the city. It was a massive dome that seemed to be made of crystallized music. As they approached, Sarah could hear the sound of thousands of voices speaking in hundreds of languages, all somehow blending into a single beautiful harmony. Inside the hall, the gathering was already in session. Species that had been enemies for millennia sat side by side, working together to solve problems that affected everyone. The Zephyrians were sharing atmospheric modification technology with the desert worlds. The Christic Empire was teaching crystal-based computing to species that had never progressed beyond basic electronics. The soft ones were helping everyone learn new forms of communication that transcended language barriers. At the center of the hall, a holographic display showed the current state of the galaxy. Green dots marked peaceful worlds. Blue dots showed successful trade partnerships. Yellow dots indicated areas that needed assistance. There were no red dots, no wars, no conflicts that couldn't be resolved through discussion and cooperation. "Welcome, friends," Sarah said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall through the reality speakers. "1 year ago, our galaxy was ruled by fear and oppression. Today, we gather as equals to build something better." A Zephyrian representative raised a feathered appendage. "Commander Chun, we are grateful for what humanity has done. But many of us are wondering, what comes next? You have the power to rule. You, us all, your technology is beyond anything we can understand. Why do you choose to share power instead of taking it? Sarah had expected this question. It was one that came up in every discussion about the new galactic order. Because, she said, ruling was never the goal. The goal was to ensure that no one could ever again do to another species what was done to us. The best way to guarantee that is to make sure that power is shared, not concentrated. But surely, a Christic delegate interjected, humanity deserves special recognition for liberating the galaxy? Special privileges for your sacrifice? Sarah shook her head. Our species already has what we need. We have our homeworld back. We have our freedom. We have the ability to ensure that the truth about our history will never be forgotten. What more could we want? An older human voice spoke from the assembled delegates. It was Admiral Webb, representing the human colonies that had chosen to remain separate from Earth. What the commander isn't telling you, Webb said with a grin, is that we've moved beyond wanting to rule anything. We've become something that doesn't need to rule. We exist in spaces between reality now. We experience time differently. We've transcended the need for traditional power. What he means, Sarah explained, is that humanity has evolved, not just technologically, but philosophically. We learned that the universe is big enough for everyone. That cooperation creates more wealth and competition. That diversity makes everyone stronger. A new voice spoke up. It belonged to a species that hadn't existed a year ago, the descendants of a world that the hegemony had sterilized centuries earlier. Humanity had restored them from genetic fragments found in ancient hegemony archives. Commander Chun, the delegate, said, "Our species owes its very existence to human intervention. We literally would not be here without your reality manipulation technology. How do we repay such a debt?" "By building the kind of galaxy we all want to live in," Sarah replied. "By making sure that what happened to Earth, what happened to your world, what happened to dozens of other species, never happens again." The assembly continued for hours. Species after species reported on new alliances, new discoveries, new ways of cooperation that had never been possible under hegemony rule. The thermal dancers were teaching other species how to survive in extreme environments. The void swimmers were sharing techniques for traveling between galaxies. The harmonious collective was helping everyone learn to think in larger groups without losing individual identity. As the day ended, Sarah found herself standing on a balcony overlooking the assembly hall. The sunset on New Earth lasted for hours, showing colors that shifted through spectrums visible to dozens of different species. Admiral Kim joined her on the balcony. His ghost fleet had been instrumental in coordinating the reality revision that had erased the hegemony. "Any regrets?" he asked. Sarah considered the question. 3,000 years of planning had led to this moment. Humanity had achieved everything it had set out to accomplish. The hegemony was gone. Earth was restored. The galaxy was free. "No," she said finally. "No regrets. But I do wonder sometimes what our ancestors would think of what we've become." "I think they'd be proud," Kim said. "We took their anger and turned it into something constructive. We took their pain and used it to heal the galaxy." Below them, the assembly hall continued to glow with the light of 1,000 different species working together. Ships from across the galaxy moved through space that bent itself to accommodate them. On world after world, species that had been enemies were learning to be friends. "The plan worked," Sarah said softly. "Which plan?" Kim asked. "All of them. A hegemony's plan to destroy us made us stronger. Our plan to survive made us wiser. Our plan for revenge became a plan for rebuilding. And our plan for the galaxy became reality." She looked up at the stars, each one now home to species that were free to choose their own destiny. Somewhere out there, In dimensions humanity could visit but chose not to dominate, other realities were being born. Other possibilities were taking shape. "We did it," she whispered. "We really did it." The galaxy was free. The universe was vast and welcoming. And humanity, once marked for extinction, had become its gardeners. The vengeance was complete. Not through destruction, but through creation. Not through conquest, but through liberation. The plan had failed. Love had won dot, and in the spaces between, the stars, where human consciousness now danced with technologies that treated physics as poetry, the species that had been meant to die was teaching the galaxy how to live.